Welcome to another episode of Talking Fast, a Gilmore Girls podcast. I'm Suzanne.
And I'm Alexis.
And we're two longtime fans of the show, excited to rewatch and recap it along the way.
This week, we're recapping Season 3, Episode 6, titled Take the Deviled Eggs, ... The Netflix bio is, when Lorelai winds up attending a social event with Rory, she learns more about Christopher's life than she wanted to know.
Wow. Sounds like an expose.
Yeah.
Before we get into things, don't forget about our sticker giveaway. You can enter this by writing us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and emailing us a screenshot to talkingfastpodcast@gmail.com. Or you can just give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, just for funsies.
Mm-hmm. What could be more fun than that?
Yeah, exactly. It's like a hit of dopamine when you press that 5-star under Talking Fast.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Anyways, what were your initial thoughts for this episode?
It was another one that I really enjoyed, I would say. I just feel like Season 3, they're really in their groove. And I was delighted by the return of Sherry and actor Madchen-Amick. I probably didn't get the first name correct. Yeah. I like her. We've talked about her before, all the various shows she's in. And I was also pretty tickled by the Jess works at Walmart, and that's how he bought the car, like secret and then reveal at the end of the episode. That's something I definitely remembered. How about you?
I agree. I feel like they've kind of nailed the whole like 2 main storylines for the episode kind of thing. And then there's like always a third town quirkiness plot line to liven things up a little bit here and there. And I think they've really started to do that really well, and especially in a way that's not like as difficult for us to recap, where some episodes, like in Season 2, every single scene would have to like go back and forth amongst like 3 different storylines. And it would get a bit complicated. This is a bit more straightforward.
Yeah, there's almost like a formula that they've developed and they follow for the episodes. And some people might think it's like an insult to call a show formulaic, but I don't mean it in that way. Like, I don't know, you follow a recipe for a cake and it turns out into something great, a cake, right? And so it's like each of these episodes are like a good cake, slightly different flavors each time, maybe.
We'll have to ask Larissa at Eating Gilmore sometime to like tell us the flavors of cake that would go along with some of our favorite episodes, just for fun.
I like that. Very abstract. Well, speaking of formulas and things that you follow, our formula is to kick things off with our Talking Fast segment. So, shall we?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, I believe you're first this week. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just got like a false sense of hubris. I was like, I'm easily going to be under 30 seconds this time. So we'll see how it goes.
We'll see. Yeah, time will tell. 30 seconds will tell. All right. 3, 2, 1, go. So
we open the episode with something that never comes up again about magazines and subscriptions. Then we have a town meeting where we find out that the loner wants to have a protest, and we also find out that Jess has a car. After this, we are invited to Sherry's baby shower, and the baby shower kind of ends up being a torture fest for Lorelai. Meanwhile, Luke is trying to figure out how Jess got the car, and he works at Walmart, and then they egg Jess's car. Oh, I feel like I forgot about the town loner stuff. Oh well, I got most of it.
Well, you got the start of the storyline, so yeah, that was good.
Okay, are you ready to go?
Yes.
Okay, ready, set, go.
So there is the town hall meeting where the town loner protest comes up. After they leave, the Jess has a car thing comes up as well. Luke tries to kind of like go around town and goes through Jess's stuff to try and figure out how he could afford it. He eventually learns that Jess has been working at Walmart. He has a good laugh about that, but he kind of knows where the car came from. Meanwhile, the other big storyline is the Sherry baby shower. And there's also Miss Patty has a date. And I took a turn for the worst.
Loved Miss Patty's date.
About 10 seconds in, I think. Me too.
Yeah.
I'd say we should start there, but we do have a random cold open scene to get to first when we slow down. As you mentioned, it's something that is not attached to anything else in the rest of the episode.
No, it was so pointless. So we open up at Lorelai and Rory's house, and Lorelai is like stacking all of the catalogs and magazines, and her plan is to go and call all of the different catalogs and make it so that they only have one subscription to each.
Mm-hmm.
And Rory makes fun of her because she never follows through with her plans, and then lo and behold, Lorelai doesn't follow through with her plan.
I was thinking back to, we had a brief conversation about how some people read Lorelai as having ADHD. I thought this scene, though it doesn't really, matter too much to the rest of the episode, one thing it could be relevant to is the reading of her as having that. The, like, difficulty to stay on tasks, like starting new tasks but not seeing them through.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense.
I just had sympathy because this is a horrible task to do, like making all these calls.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't want to either.
I know. It's like these days there are apps that will cancel subscriptions for you when you have subscriptions that you forgot about. That's what Lorelai needs.
Yeah, I also like how she mentioned she gave 2 fake names to see which stores were giving out her information, which felt incredibly relevant to us now. Like, I've definitely thought about like what websites have sold my phone number or my name or whatever. Like, the whole scam call industry is booming and no one seems to do anything about it. I never answer my phone. I get so many emails. It's like, oh, it is a hellscape out there. This is just a preview, the catalog issue she has.
At least those, like, I don't know, you can do something with catalogs. Sometimes they're fun to just flip through. You can also start fires with them if you have a fireplace.
In an apocalypse,
camping.
they could be toilet paper.
Yeah, that's true. I have been watching The Last of Us, and that
Me
happened
too.
in this last episode. Such a good show.
Maybe if
so
we
far.
don't go an hour and 30 at the end, we can talk about which character would survive in like an apocalypse.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if we have time for it, though.
Yeah. Well, I'll be thinking about it either way. So after this completely pointless opening, which was still fun, I guess it's not totally pointless. We are in a town meeting where Taylor's talking about the bird poop problem, which I thought was great. Apparently he thinks that birds have been perching and pooping too often, and I think Babette brings up the fact that, or asks Taylor whether he's raising this because he has been pooped on a lot recently. Sounds like that is the case.
Yeah, he says, I dare say some of these birds are doing it on purpose.
I've never been, well, I think I've been pooped on by a bird once, maybe.
I have once as well. It was on the 4th of July, and we had just set off fireworks, so I totally understood, but it was still really gross.
Scared it shitless.
Yes, exactly. I just think this Taylor moment is, like, infamous. I had posted a TikTok about Taylor a while back, and some of the comments mentioned this, like, bird thing and his yearning for control even over birds. It's like, I don't know, it just makes me think about how utopias go wrong, Like, in theory, a perfect world where no one poops on you. Great, but his solution is to, like, put these spikes on their streetlights so that birds impale themselves.
Yeah,
it's
that's
just
terrible.
A great little case study of Taylor,
After, or I guess during this, I have my Stars Hollow moment, which is when this gentleman opens the door and he has a bouquet of flowers and he's looking for Miss Patty to take her on a date. And as soon as Miss Patty tells him to wait outside, and then as soon as the doors close, everybody in the town is like oohing and awing and questioning her about this love interest. And I just loved that. It was so, like, such a good community. Everybody's teasing her, but all in good fun.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just cute.
Yeah. I thought everything about it was adorable. From like Jesus
Mm-hmm.
himself to Miss Patty, the crowd reaction of the oohing it was so good.
Yeah. And that basically effectively ends the meeting, except that we have one last issue to bring up, which is the town loner wants to stage a protest, and Taylor very clearly is against this. He's protesting protests. He says that they are un-American, which everybody brings up as obviously not the case.
Mm-hmm.
But he decides that the town loner cannot do his protest. So we'll come back to that storyline later.
Yeah, in the second part of that scene, I have my Rory's bookshelf nomination because as they're describing the town loner, they call him weird, taciturn, creepy. He's a loner that lives in the hills. And then it's Lorelai, I believe, says he's their Boo Radley. And then Rory says every town needs their Boo Radley. And this is a reference to Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee, which has come up before in our second season. We talked about that with Jess a little bit. And I honestly had to Google the summary of To Kill a Mockingbird because I read that, I believe, like my freshman year of high school.
Yeah,
it's been so
same.
long. But Boo Radley is this sort of like mysterious character that kind of like, I think, is mentioned at the very beginning and then at the end again, is just this like elusive character that everyone else ends up kind of like putting their own sort of stuff onto him, like making sense of him because he's never around. I think the summary like referred to him as a ghost kind of in the way that he's there but he's not there. Yeah, I think freshman me could probably give more details than this, but overall I found myself kind of intrigued by all of their like fixation and obsession on the loner. He'll come up again at the end. It kind of put like a poor taste in my mouth the way they were describing him as so creepy. I don't know, like, who is this person actually? Like, I guess I don't know. Yeah, but it is, my Rory's bookshelf there. The literary comparison I think is apt.
The last time we heard about a town loner was in that one episode where they were telling Rory to make more friends at school, and Lorelai was like saying, "Oh, she's gonna be like a loner," and then they started listing off all of these attributes of like the Columbine school shooters, basically like that stereotype, and I feel like they're doing something similar here, like, and again the obsession with the Unabomber, like they're giving all those attributes to this town loner.
Yeah.
Who maybe just likes to, maybe he just works from home. At this point in time, that would have been like revolutionary.
Yeah. Maybe there is just like a neighborhood in the hills and that's where he lives. And
Yeah.
Yeah. Who knows?
Yeah. I would probably have been a town loner, except I do like to go to the bookstore and stuff. So I would be seen. Anyways. As we leave the town meeting, first Lorelai makes fun of Luke for potentially also being the town loner, and then we see Jess drive by in a new old car, and that we've never seen him driving before. Lorelai is like kind of surprised by this and tries to ask Luke about it, and Luke did not know that Jess had gotten a car. Which is promising for how this is going to go.
Yeah. I thought, so like Luke walks over to Jess to ask him about the car, and he is definitely immediately suspicious of how Jess was able to purchase this car. He says, I know how much you make. I know how much I pay you. You don't make enough to be able to buy a car. Where did you get it? He's definitely suspecting Jess got it from less than honest means, but I'm like, does Luke really believe that he would steal a car or something like
Yeah.
that? I think it's more so some like um, lack of trust kind of seeping into the relationship a bit. And I don't think Jess helps matters by being so evasive, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And I did think it was interesting, though, at the end of the scene, Jess asks Luke to sign the registration because Jess is a minor, and Luke does, like, despite his concerns and the fact that he's going to be looking into this for the rest of the episode. I did think, like, it is interesting. I feel like that shows he does have, like, a modicum of respect for Jess's independence, even as he is, like, distressing him and planning to get to the bottom of it.
Yeah, I kind of got the feeling with the whole storyline that it wasn't as serious as it could have been. Like, Luke was less, I would say, distrustful, like that, or less thinking that Jess actually, like, stole it or something, and more just extremely curious about the life that Jess leads that he doesn't know about. And I think that that's kind of, like, evidenced in how Luke responds to finding out where Jess is getting the money, which is kind of like in a jokey way, and he's not too bothered by the fact that Jess left it out, like made it a secret. He obviously doesn't think that's good, but it's not as serious as it could be, I think. I just got more of a jokey vibe from most of what was going on.
Yeah, I can see that, like, rather than distrust, it's more like this curiosity that is eating away at him. He's like astounded or flabbergasted at like how this is possible, and he just
Could
wants
he really
to
be
know.
this responsible with money?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I think that does make sense, and we'll see a bit more about that as Luke makes some questionable decisions as he investigates this as the episode goes on. For now, we follow Lorelai as she arrives home after the meeting. Rory is already there. Lorelai gets the mail and discovers that Rory has been invited to Sherry's baby shower. This is the first we're hearing of Sherry in a while. Around the, first and second episodes, we got, the Chris storyline, but Sherry hasn't really been around too much since the second season. And this kind of brings up the fact that Rory has been in contact with Christopher, which is news to us as well as Lorelai. And Lorelai handles this in classic, like, excellent co-parent fashion. Like, we've said what we will about Lorelai as things come up, but, like, consistently she handles co-parenting brilliantly. And here she is insistent that Rory doesn't have to apologize for talking to Christopher. She should go to the baby shower if she wants to. Like, she'll support her by helping her get there. And the only thing she's really hung up on is the fact that Rory was, like, secretive and didn't share this information with her, kind of paralleling the whole Jess not telling Luke things and that bugging him. It's like the secrets, so teenager though.
Yeah, she's great at, like, making it super clear that her problems with Chris are not Rory's problems with Chris. Even though Rory kind of takes them on sometimes, it's completely on her own accord. Yeah, I agree. She did great. She also gets mad at Rory for apologizing constantly, and I have a friend who also apologizes constantly for everything, and sometimes it's, like, the hardest thing to not get mad at somebody for apologizing, because then they'll just apologize again. So this, like, loop was very relatable to me.
Yeah, like the classic Rory as the people pleaser. I totally buy into her as the person who, like, overly apologizes. But it is super interesting in how that's paired with her characterization of also, like, we kind of have the Rory who doesn't apologize for things she should be apologizing for
That's
now later on. So
yeah, that's true. So after we get this set up for the baby shower storyline, we are back at Luke's, and Jess is hurrying out, getting into his car. I gave my Rory's bookshelf moment to something really weird this week. Kirk, so he's at the diner, of course, getting his patty melt cut into squares and stars, but then he starts just like talking this car gibberish, and I gave him my Rory's bookshelf because if Luke hadn't pointed out that this was all gibberish, I would have thought that Kirk really knew a lot about cars. And I just felt like this was it's not a reference to anything, but it's a fake reference to things. And this is also how I feel about cars. Also, I just didn't have anything else that I wanted to give my Rory's bookshelf to. And I love this. I love this little quirky moment.
Yeah. Well, he mentions he learned about cars from a record, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So that, there's the lit stuff for you. Yeah, it's a record.
Yeah, I've never heard it, but...
Mm-hmm. I had that exchange as my Stars Hollow moment because I suspected, I was like, we both might do that scene at the open, so I'll try to put it somewhere else. And so actually I picked this moment because it's such like a normal, average kind of exchange between Luke and Kirk as he's taking the order. Luke just opens by asking, do you want your melt in what was it, squares or stars today? And Kirk says half and half. And Luke just is like writes that down. He's not even fazed by that. And I thought it was interesting how Luke isn't angry by this exchange. If anything, he seems distracted watching Jess. But I also thought, like maybe 8 times out of 10, Luke isn't really always angry with his customers, and it's more like this like monotonous ordering, and we just happen to see a lot of the like ones where Luke is stressed or worked up. But it's just very normal between Kirk and him. It's a very average day in town, followed by that funny car stuff. And then the scene ends with Kirk kind of looking off into the distance saying, man, I wish my mom would let me have a car or a bike. Or my roller skates back. It's just yet another moment where Kirk is like the perfect character to nominate at a given moment for Stars Hollow nomination,
Yeah. I also want to point out, I feel like we should follow Luke and Kirk's friendship, because in later seasons, especially I think season 4, they like kind of confide in each other a lot in kind of weird ways. And I don't know, I feel like this is a moment where it's clear that they are friends, even if they are constantly kind of antagonizing each other, not in the same way as Taylor and Luke, but but they're clearly, they have a rapport and they're friends. And I don't know, it's just an interesting friendship.
Yeah, I totally agree. Something to track as well.
So keeping with the theme of cars, after this we go to Gypsy's car repair, where she is criticizing Jackson's driving and his car maintenance. Yeah, we have barely seen him and Suki, really. I mean, we saw like the home decor thing, and other
that
than
was
that,
their
we've
last
just seen
storyline.
Yeah, we've just seen him in like scenes here and there. So it was great to see him being grumpy about how he treats his car, which I don't know, I again kind of relate to. I feel like I treat my car much better than this, but also if somebody told me I flood the engine, which I think you can only do on standard manual, manual, if somebody were to tell me that I do that, I'd be like, oh sure, I guess I do. I don't know how, but I do that. But yeah.
I'd be giving Gypsy a lot of money, I think. She could tell me anything.
I know. I'm one of those people who's like easily taken in by car maintenance folks, which is exactly what many of them know about me when they see me.
And if they're listening to this right now, we are not easily taken in. Yeah. We are strong. We know a lot about cars.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Anyways, Luke also shows up, and he's just asking Gypsy about how Jess bought the car. She's saying that it was all above board. He had the cash. She doesn't really question, where people get their cash. Obviously, if they show up with it, then she'll take it. So it seems like Jess got his car, the car at least respectably. How he got the cash is still up for debate.
Yeah. I have my Jess sass attack in this scene as Luke is questioning Gypsy. She says, because at one point, Luke asks, like, what was the money like? Does he say, like, was there like a gun and a mask with the money or something?
Yeah.
Essentially implying, like, were there any signs of like robbery or theft when he had the money? And she's like, oh, he was carrying it in a bag with a big dollar sign on it. Like a comical robbery bag you might see in like a cartoon. And she says this deadpan, so Luke doesn't really pick up on this. And then she says, guys are stupid. If we don't laugh after we make a joke, you think we're serious. And it was
so
very
true.
Good. Very funny.
Wonderful. We're getting a lot of fun little scenes like this with Luke's storyline for the episode. And we get another right after this back at the diner. We see Taylor having an argument with the Reverend and Rabbi, who I don't think we've run into this yet, but they share the church basically. They have services right after one another. And I think there's a scene, I don't remember when it is, where we see like the end of the Reverend, maybe it's during the baptism with Suki's kids or something, but
yeah, or a funeral, but I know what you're thinking of.
We see like them switch really rapidly right after the Reverend finishes his service. They like switch out the cross for a Star of David, and then the rabbi starts reciting from the Torah.
Yeah, this scene is my gazebo moment, actually.
Nice.
I loved it so much. And as you're saying, like the fact that they share the church, that premise alone, I think is just fantastic. Like Amy Sherman Palladino's imagination of like in Stars Hollow, the two faiths like coexist together in the same building. They share it, and they're like, the Reverend and Rabbi are like best friends.
Yeah.
And like
BFFs.
Get along so well. And what I loved about this scene is really like the dialogue, which is so quick and funny. They are like really having at Taylor, making fun of him, and the acting on all three's part. They're like so calm and funny, and Taylor is so worked up. Like it was just so amusing to watch. And I tried to write down some of the dialogue. Taylor's essentially bothered that they've agreed to have the protest from the church building. So they let's see, what do I want to quote from here? Well, okay, so they say they don't answer to Taylor, they answer to a higher power, the hot dog. And that was the rabbi's joke. And the Reverend goes, oh, I laugh every time you say that. And the rabbi goes, funny is funny. They're just so like jovial and good with each other. At one point, Taylor's like, God doesn't approve of this, or like, I know God wouldn't want this or something. And they're like, Taylor, you're in direct communication with God? Do you have a God phone? What's he like? Tell us common folk. Is he serious about shellfish? Because those Red Lobster commercials. Yeah, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but it kind of wraps up with Taylor threatening to shut down bingo at their building. And he says he's not afraid of the bubbies to the rabbi. And they're very like, oh, you don't know what you've just said, like, no. And Taylor threatens to like take his dollar that he donates every week to another church, and they're like, well, maybe the Shakers in Woodbury will have you. And overall the back and forth was just so humorous. Like you said, this is like a very small plot line, but it just keeps you so invested in it through like just scenes like this. I love it.
Yeah, we love to see the townsfolk not only standing up to Taylor, but completely like mowing him down with the witticisms. He didn't stand a chance against the Reverend and Rabbi. Mm-hmm. We also see a different busboy who we never see again in the diner. I was interested by that. And then this is when Luke appears, and he's looking for Jess again, and he goes upstairs and begins looking through all of Jess's drawers and everything. He doesn't find anything, but we see him open what I think is like a false book, like that is like looks like the cover of a book and everything, and you open it up and it's hollow. I didn't really see what was in it or anything or what, but it's probably just, I don't know, his personal effects or whatever. But I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, I was gonna guess it was Rory's bracelet, but he did return that.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe it's, I guess it'd be way too obvious if it's just like a Polaroid of her or something. Maybe it's like
Yeah.
a piece from the car crash or like a pencil he borrowed when they were in New York or something. I don't know. Some
I don't know.
mementos.
Yeah, well.
But I did love that was just like such a Jess kind of little knickknack with his book obsession. I liked that.
Yeah.
I want one of those. I don't know what I would put in it, but I want one.
Yes. We interrupt this podcast with a message from our sponsor.
This week we have a PSA straight from Paris Fashion Week. Green is the new pink. Yes, you heard it here first. Pink is out and green is in. Forget about pink roses or pink icing on those Valentine's Day cookies. It's all going to be green this year.
Now, why would we predict this trend? After all, pink has been a beloved color for generations. We've put our baby girls in it to make sure the world is 100% sure about their gender even before they are. We've made it the color of love. As soon as February hits, pink is the only color you see. So why the change?
Green is the color of forests, vegetation all over the world, and aliens. If you need any reason greater than that, then you obviously are no fashionista. Pink is artificial, ladies. Green, now that is the color of nature. Plus, it isn't tied inextricably to a specific gender, making it a color that all can and should enjoy. We hope we cleared that up for all listeners of Talking Fast.
Meanwhile, Lane and Rory are walking about town, chatting about the baby shower and Rory's gift, and then they come across the car. Lane is drawn to it immediately, wondering whose car it is, and Rory says it's Jess's. This proceeds to get Lane fairly worked up, and Rory is calm, like for now, and essentially the idea of this scene, I want to unpack a bit with you. Like, it's very much about Lane being defensive on her friend's behalf. She's like angry. I guess that Jess has a car when he totaled Rory's car. So like in her mind, it's like not fair for him to have a car because he's the reason Rory doesn't have one. She's the one who should have a new car if anyone gets one. And this just made me wonder, like, what do you think of this scene, I guess? Because before, we haven't really seen Lane have much of an opinion about Jess, and we've kind of thought, like, oh, she's not totally against him, but she seems to be here. What do you think about this choice, I guess, of them, like, writing this scene as her kind of being antagonistic towards Jess? Like, why? To what effect?
That's a good point, because it's true we haven't really seen her be that critical of Jess. I mean, and the last time that they talked about boys together, Lane was like talking about how great Rory and Dean are, so we don't, and it doesn't seem like Rory's been confiding with Lane about her feelings for Jess. So I don't know, that's a good point. It seems like maybe it was just like an easy way for the writers to make sure that we feel antagonistic towards this car so that they can egg it later, or like I don't know, maybe it's Lane like projecting what she thinks. I mean, I think it is Lane trying to do what she thinks Rory might actually be feeling, like trying to portray what Rory won't. But I don't know, it's weird because I hadn't thought about it, but you're right, it really isn't really in Lane's character at the moment with how she and Jess have gotten on so far. I could more so see her doing this about Dean at some point than Jess.
Yeah, I just thought it was a little weird and kind of out of the blue almost for her to have such a strong attitude against him. But as I was thinking about it and listening to you just now, like I do kind of connect it to what we were talking about with our like observation that Rory doesn't seem to confide in Lane about her love life and about Jess specifically. So I'm like, I think could be a sign that Lane has really bought into the narrative that the town has about like what happened with the car accident and how they all vilified Jess. And it's so interesting to me that Rory never told her the truth of what happened, because if Rory had, I don't feel like Lane would be reacting this way in this scene. So I think it's just sad again that this is another sign that Rory is like so internal. She's really like hoarding these like all of this private stuff and not sharing it with like someone who's closest to her. But we definitely don't see Rory like mention that now in this scene. Like and by the end of the episode either, like this Rory, this was the other thing I was wondering about, like, and I think we can probably understand what has happened because we've been recapping, but like what happened to Rory from season 2 where she was so like protesting her responsibility and her accountability, to now where she doesn't say anything to like defend Jess in this moment, and then later on instigates the egging of the car when it's like, what do you have to be mad at him for? Like, you know, he wasn't responsible for the car situation. Like, it was just another sign that she's like so far gone in her like feelings of like jealousy and anger at him. It's so like misdirected from her unresolved shit she's got going on. It's like, wow.
Yeah, and like regret also. I also, at the end of this scene, as they're walking away, Rory yells something about how like he's got a bra in the back seat.
Yeah, she said, you left your bra in the back seat.
And Jess like looks back, and there obviously was a bra there, because he gets this kind of like, I can't believe I did that look on his face. So I was wondering if a lot of this was like, I don't know about Lane's reaction necessarily, but like if Rory's reaction to the car and the egging later was all just because of this bra. Like, she's now seen not only that Jess and Shane are making out, but they're like going further than she has with Dean and probably would feel comfortable with Jess. Like, we'll come to that later in the season, but yeah, just like it seems like she's got the jealousy, and she's also like regretful because she clearly is the reason for all of this. She never made a move. She never like broke up with Dean or anything, so it's all her fault, and she denies that. And now she's just like seeing more evidence of, I guess, maybe what she could have had or something like that, or just, I don't know. It just like is piling onto her, and she's refusing to let it out in any sort of constructive way, like talking to Lane about it, you know?
That makes a whole lot of sense, that her anger is fueled by regret that she's not willing to acknowledge, and that the car is like the visible sign of that. It like informs her even more when she sees the bra, and like the car is historically a place that like teenagers use the car, you know, you can't do things at home, so the car is like not only, it's like a space that Jess now has to like go. They're not just gonna make out by trees anymore, you know, like you have the backseat of the car where the bra is. It's definitely more adult and like sexual than she's experienced. I think there is definitely like this lust that she feels for Jess, and that seeing Shane and him like making out and stuff, like that's probably something she's not willing to like check in with either. In terms of how she's feeling.
The last interaction they had was their wet scene outside of Dwight's oasis, and so like their sexual tension at this point is just very, very heightened. I imagine any like additional implications, I don't know, that's could be explosive. I didn't mean that as an innuendo. I meant that.
I am glad though that you bring up that this episode follows the like Oasis episode, because I didn't feel like this episode was always conscious of that. Like the continuity didn't quite add up to me the way that Rory reacts to Jess especially by the end of the episode, like it's her idea to go egg his car and seems to like be acting on some anger toward him. It almost felt like they'd had a bit of a, like, I don't know, like a truce or like a moment of acknowledgement together. Like it felt like some of their conflict diffused a bit when they had that sprinklers exchange. And for this, like, I feel like she's back and angrier or something.
Yeah.
So I'm like, was this episode supposed to come before that one or something?
Yeah. I mean, that
I don't
kind
know.
of, that would make sense because the episode right before that was the big Shane episode. So it kind of would make sense if this was like written to come more like as episode 5. That's interesting. I feel like that does make more sense with continuity. Because otherwise it's just so back and forth.
Yeah. Hot and cold.
Yeah. Without really like, I mean, at that point with all the back and forth, we'd have to like assume that so much, and this might be the case, but like so much is happening just within Rory's head to lead to all of this. Like after that wet sprinkler scene, maybe she then like dreamed up some like big gesture from Jess and it never happened, or I don't know, something like that. That's just like she's building expectations out of nothing that obviously get dashed because nobody knows about them.
Even we don't know. Like, as you mentioned, if all of this is kind of happening in Rory's mind, like we're not really getting access to that. And there could be scenes like I'm not asking for like a monologue or anything, but maybe they should have added a couple scenes in that could give us better clues as to like where her head is at if they're not going to have her talking about it out loud to a character so that we can know as well. Because it does feel a bit random. There is a bit of whiplash involved. And when I glanced at the list of episodes, I saw what next episode is, and I was like,
I don't know.
Whoa. That almost feels, it doesn't feel out of nowhere because, of course, this conflict has existed for quite some time now. But I was honestly kind of surprised that it follows this episode, you know? Like, yeah. We'll see.
Gosh.
We'll be on our
no
toes next episode.
I'd be so surprised. Yeah, I feel like we're having to do a lot of work right now to justify the order of things. And that's not always the best thing.
No, I guess it's good for a podcaster, but maybe not for
That's true.
Brenda. Yeah.
Yeah, very true. After this, we are headed off to the baby shower, and Lorelai is driving Rory. It's in Boston, and apparently the color for the baby shower is green, which Lorelai questions. The only thing it makes her think of is aliens, which I always am up for an alien discussion. Sherry then like appears at Rory's window and they both jump.
It's like a jump scare.
Yeah, because she also like shouts at the same time.
Hi.
Yeah. And then she coerces Lorelai into coming to the party, which is a terrible idea for both of them.
Yes.
Even for Rory, it's like it's more bad than good for Rory.
Yeah.
But she won't take no for an answer. So,
what do you think Sherry's motivation is here? Like, why does she want Lorelai so badly to attend the party?
I think from Lorelai, I think like the show kind of wants us to think that it's vindictive, like to show off how her life is good with Christopher. And I feel like that's probably how I've seen it in the past, but looking at it in our slow rewatch, I'm realizing that Sherry is never bad until she leaves Gigi, and that also we just don't know her context for. We just get Christopher's story, of course. Yeah. So all of our, like, we're seeing all this through Lorelai and Rory's point of view, and Lorelai is obviously really upset by it. So I think that kind of colors our like perception of what's happening with Sherry. So honestly, I feel like she maybe is just completely clueless as to how she's coming across. She thinks she's really invested in getting to know Rory more, and so she thinks that this is the way to go. Maybe she read a book about being a stepmother figure, and this was something that was suggested, because I don't, like, when she's talking to Lorelai later, I don't necessarily get a vindictive vibe about it.
Yeah. And Lorelai herself is like, I would respect her more if I thought it was like she was doing this on purpose. So it's like Lorelai's confused by it, and Lorelai almost comes to the conclusion at the end that, is it just like cluelessness? Does Sherry not realize the effect that she has by sharing all of this information and insisting Lorelai be a part of all of this? I don't know. I was definitely confused, but I think like maybe my theory is that Sherry has kind of like lost touch of reality a bit in her committed pursuit to having a family and her sense of what that family is supposed to be. And I think you're right. I'm guessing she's very like informed by like media and books. She's definitely a woman with a plan.
Yeah.
And she plans to, you know, have her pitch and then have her baby a couple hours later. And she like thinks she can plan these things. And I think this is my way of starting to like write her side of the story for what happens later. Like perhaps that's where it goes awry. Like, you know, she thought she could plan and organize and make all this informed decisions, but she's like losing touch of reality in terms of like how Lorelai experiences this, and also like how she is experiencing it, you know, as Sherry, not as like Gigi's mom. But we'll see that. We'll see down the line. But I think maybe she just has like such a strong vision of this like golden family and what she needs to do to make that happen. And for some reason, she seems to think Lorelai should be a part of it, and that she should like tell Lorelai all these intimate details. That just hurt her.
Yeah, and I feel like if she were thinking about it differently, like in any sort of, I don't know, socially cognizant way, she would know you don't talk to somebody's ex about, like, if you and a person share a significant other and they are now, I'm not explaining this well, but you don't talk about your partner who is somebody's ex to that person. Oh gosh, that wasn't even any better. But anyway, she shouldn't be talking about Christopher to Lorelai in such a personal way. Like, that's just a clear social faux pas. But yeah, I agree. It definitely does seem like she has lost any sort of connection with other people's feelings, maybe even her own, because I feel like that would be such an awkward position to be in, I think. Strange.
It's fascinating.
Strange woman.
She was definitely like very similar to how her character was when she appeared, which I liked that the characterization is so similar. And we had kind of talked a lot about how like she's easily an off-putting character to Lorelai and to many like viewers, and I get it, but there's something about her that still continues to like endear her to me, you know, like I don't know, but I kind of think she would survive an apocalypse, you know, of a lot of these characters here. She's determined.
Yeah, she is like hapless in a way. Like she thinks so seriously about the steps to get through things that she forgets all of the like human emotion connected with the steps.
Yeah,
which is
or like that Christopher relatable. Is her partner.
Yeah.
They're meant for each other. They're both pretty hapless, I think.
That's true. Though Christopher, I'd say, is more like damagingly hapless.
Yeah.
Though Gigi might protest.
Poor girl, yeah. Well, the next scene, or series of scenes really, is this baby shower. There's a lot going on, so maybe we don't need to cover every single detail, but what were some of the like momentous things that you noticed in this baby shower?
Well, my favorite thing was that the color is green, and I noticed that Sherry's dress, who I'm giving her my Lorelai's closet, because her dress matched perfectly with the paint color of the walls, which was green. And then we get like green cake and green everything. So that was cool. I liked that. And they definitely weren't doing it to be subversive to gender stereotypes, but I like that it was. Other than that, I think like we find out that the baby is a girl and going to be named Georgia or Gigi. And Lorelai sees this as an affront because it's too similar to Rory. I would say it's more of an affront because it's just like Gilmore Girls. Like I often just say Gigi when I'm talking about Gilmore Girls because it's too much to type out. So I feel like that's more of a
not so subtle Gilmore Girls.
Yeah. Other things, I have not been to a baby shower. Well, I think I went to one baby shower a long time ago. And these games all look terrible. It looks like torture to me. What were some of your standouts?
I did want to ask if you'd ever been to a baby shower because I've been to just a couple. One of them was nothing like this. It was more of a classic kind of like get together. But one of them did have games like this.
Oh,
like
gosh.
truly, this actually I think is what some baby showers are like. And I won like a prize for winning one of the games. And it did involve diapers. It was like the diapers and you had to guess like what was inside. I don't know if it was by smell or sight, but it was like melted chocolate candy to be like poop. It's bizarre.
What a waste of chocolate.
I know.
That's just so weird. I don't understand.
Yeah. I don't know.
There's some bridal showers and stuff sometimes too have like the weirdest activities. Why don't you just have some cake, chat, maybe have a movie on? I don't know. Maybe I just don't like parties.
I don't know. The second thing I wanted to highlight was like a jaw-dropping moment for me, and not in a good way. They're like all complimenting Sherry's beauty essentially, and her and Chris and together. And one of Sherry's friends says, next to this like single black woman in the group, she says, "You and Chris are the poster for Aryan breeding." I was like, oh my God, I know the show means that as a joke. Like, oh, this character who would like say something like that. I don't know. But I was just like, that was so casually thrown out in these like scenes of dialogue. And I'm like, her black friend is sitting right there. This character doesn't like seem to like think anything about it. I was just like, oh my God.
Yeah, I was also astounded by that. I feel like this is something that would never fly in the 2020s just because I feel like we're so much more aware of like white supremacy and the vocabulary that goes along with it. Or maybe just some people are. But and like Aryan is an exact like synonym for white or for what am I trying, like eugenic white supremacist type of thought.
Yeah, like blood lines, purity, gross stuff like that. Yeah, it was like the vocabulary, but then also that she said it so flippantly, and then they don't even have the actor next to her who is black. They don't even have her react. Like, it's just like or anyone in the scene, like not a single person reacts of like, oh, that's offensive. Like there's not even a facial expression that changes. I'm like, wow, that was so casual yet toxic.
Gosh.
And speaking of toxic, I also placed my Friday night dinner critique at the baby shower, and I think it was actually an earlier conversation where they're all discussing how Sherry looks while she's pregnant. And this was just like flagging the expectations of women's bodies when they're pregnant and how they're kind of like espousing some really negative ideas here. Her friend says, "Don't you hate the way Sherry looks?" And they're all kind of like complimenting Sherry on how thin she is, like her face, and how you wouldn't know she was pregnant. Lorelai jokes that the door had to be widened for her when she was pregnant. And it's like offensive on a variety of levels, but the fact that it's like pregnancy is a time when your body is supposed to grow to like form another human, and that they are like they've internalized these societal like views on fatness so that they like feel like they feel bad or have to make jokes or compliment if you don't look larger when you're pregnant. It's just so ridiculous to me. And I don't know. It's like, well, no. I was going to try to be like generous to the show and think like perhaps they're trying to shed light and represent this thing that a lot of pregnant women do deal with, you know, their like perceptions of their body as it changes and whatever. But I don't think they mean it to be kind of a realism portrayal of that at all. It's like because of the way that they bring it up often in the rest of the show too. They don't really have nuance or insight when it comes to fat phobia and whatnot. So yeah, just definitely some toxicity at this baby shower in more ways than one.
Yeah, I agree. That was obnoxious. I've never been pregnant, nor do I ever intend to be, but I can just imagine like the added pressure that women already have to look a certain way, and that's like impossible for many people. And then like add on to that your body's doing one of the weirdest things that bodies can ever do. And you're supposed to stay aliens. Skinny. I know, exactly. I was about to make like an alien reference there, but I did that with my sister when she was pregnant and it didn't go well. Anyways.
Yeah, we're in a safe space for alien baby jokes here.
During this, after like all the weird games and stuff, Lorelai or Sherry's talking about how involved Christopher has been and how he's amazing and how Christopher talks to the baby every night. And Lorelai, this is after Lorelai's left to get food and Sherry has followed her and is now telling her all this stuff, as we'd mentioned before. And Lorelai is clearly like having to count back from 10 in her head to keep her cool during all of this. Sherry does not pick up on that at all. She just keeps like going on about how good it's been. Then she also kind of recounts the story of finding out that she was pregnant and telling Christopher, which, as we know, happened when Christopher and Lorelai had just hooked up and were planning to be together at Sookie's wedding. And Sherry just like casually kind of mentions that, you know, he was at that wedding, and as if, I mean, she doesn't know, of course, what happened, which is another thing that means that Christopher hasn't told her what happened. But yeah, she talks about how Christopher was like so supportive as soon as he found out. He wanted to be there and like be really involved this time. And then she credits Lorelai with this change. She says that she thanks Lorelai for having this effect on him, which is, it just crosses the line. It's just like, how could you think that that's the appropriate thing to say right now?
Oh, yeah. It was really good to like watch Lauren Graham's expressions throughout this whole scene, because Lorelai really isn't saying much. And in that first half that you talked about, where Sherry's kind of just like oversharing how involved Christopher is, like he plays the baby music or like he sings or something like that, and how he like wants her to lie down all the time and things like that. And I felt like Lorelai's expression was really something of like a profound sadness, as she's probably thinking about all the times, you know, like that was not her experience. He was not invested like that with her. And then in the second half, I was sure it kind of moves to the like thanking her for like making him a changed man, not knowing the whole context. She like then is moving to this like anger and kind of like outrage and disbelief a bit. And that's when she kind of like has to escape to the bathroom, or she's probably going to start like, I don't know. I credit her for her fortitude here. Like she easily could just like spill the beans, you know, like tell her the full truth. But I think she clearly feels like that's not her place. That's more so Christopher's place. So I don't know. I just commend her on like being able to wall up all of the stuff inside, and then she takes it out on the bathroom, which was comical. Just like messing up her medicine cabinet, throwing the towels on the ground. It was such like a harmless way to get back at someone, yet it is something that would irk someone like Sherry, who probably like alphabetized her cabinet like she did to the CD collection, which is another topic that they bring up.
Yeah, I loved how she took it out on the bathroom, and Rory comes in. I'm pretty sure, does Rory put it back together afterwards?
Yeah, that's what she says in the car.
And
which is so Rory.
Yeah, it really is. Rory comes in and like kind of talks Lorelai down, although understandably Lorelai is very upset by all of this. She kind of like recounts everything Sherry's been saying and rants about it, understandably. But she does get calmed back down. They go back out to the baby shower somehow. I don't know if I could do that. I would probably have to leave.
Yeah. Although, like, notably, Lorelai makes a lot of complaints against Sherry, but it's stuff about, like, the green, the CD collection. She almost, but then withholds, like, complaining about what they said in the solo conversation they had. I think where she's really hurt, that's the thing she's really angry about, but she actually doesn't tell Rory about that, which I can understand. Like, that was like a deeply felt thing, and she wasn't open to confiding it at that moment. So she is still kind of like holding it in. And yeah, they stay there until 6, we learn, because they try to leave at 5, but Sherry, ropes them again into staying an hour longer because she's like, you would just be in traffic for that hour. And I don't know. I just thought this episode was kind of funny. It's the second in a row where Lorelai got roped into doing something she didn't want to do, like watering the lawn, going to the baby shower. It's like really building up, I think, our sympathy for Lorelai, which we need after being so like not on her side before. Now I'm like so pleasantly on her side,
Yeah, that's true. I was also thinking like all of these Lorelai storylines we've gotten this season so far, seasons 1 and 2 were basically all Lorelai with somebody or like breaking up or starting to date somebody, and now we just have like that in between. I mean, I guess she dated John Hamm, but that's just a little bit different. Yeah. And so now we're getting all of these storylines of her life outside of that, and it's really interesting because she doesn't seem to have. She's not doing much of what she wants to do. She's being tortured a lot by things.
Yeah.
Let's see. Anything else to talk about with the baby shower?
No, I don't think so. We'll follow up with it a bit more on their drive home, but before that scene, we return to Luke's to finish up this Jess car storyline, or at least the mystery of how he got the car storyline. His car will be a notable subject in another scene by the end. But here, Luke finally gets the answer to, how does Jess have a car? And it's that Jess is working at Walmart.
Yeah.
And this seems to be like the punchline of the joke, I guess. I don't know. Like,
yeah, it was weird.
What is so funny about just working at Walmart, I guess, is the question. Is it picturing him as the greeter? Because I do think that is hilarious. Like, he's definitely not the person who is waving you in and smiling at you. Is it Luke just being, like, lighthearted about it? Like, he's so happy he finally knows the secret and it's not something bad. It's just that he has another job. Is it that it's like a classist thing to like look down on people who work at Walmart?
Yeah. This scene had my Friday night dinner in it, partly for that and also partly because Luke has been going through Jess's things and he tries to justify that, which I don't think is like, it's not just don't look through other people's things. My dad did that to me once when I was a teenager, and it was like, it's like I was so angry about it.
Yeah, it's a total disruption of privacy, and it didn't seem like something Luke would do to me necessarily. It seems like Emily would do that, without a doubt. But I don't see Luke as someone who would do that, and it doesn't. You're right that he's like defensive of it. He didn't seem to like reflect on it or feel bad about it, like morally. So, I didn't love that part of the storyline either. I agree.
Yeah. And then with the whole Walmart thing, I really feel like it was a classist thing, because I think that oftentimes Walmart is seen as like the low class Target. Like, that's the place for people with lower incomes, usually the place where like black and brown people shop more than white people. It's just like got that kind of reputation, I feel like. And I feel like that's what Luke was like going with here, what he was reacting to, even though it's utterly ridiculous. And I feel like a teenager working at Walmart, anybody working at Walmart, it's a good job. It also kind of speaks badly on Luke that he pays Jess so little that Jess needs to go out and get another job. Though at the same time, if Jess like was just getting the job to be able to get a car, that's also his like own prerogative, and it speaks highly of Jess, I would say, like that he's willing to go out and do what he needs to do to get what he wants, or to be able to buy what he wants. But yeah, just the whole like talking down about Walmart and all like the more like quote unquote unskilled labor, which though as Luke points out, Jess did have to be certified to be able to do his job, so it's not really unskilled. And I worked at a grocery store as a stalker for a year when I was in college. It's hard work, and it sounds easy, but it's also very easy to mess up. So
yeah, it's interesting that we've had 2 episodes that back to back portray kind of like toxic beliefs and values about work. Like here you've got Luke making fun of Jess for working at Walmart. In last episode we had the whole Rory thing, disrespecting Shane at work. Like the kind of like just the judgment and looking down on people and certain kinds of work that they do. It's, I don't know, like I think I remember finding this plot line like really funny the last time I had watched it. And then this time around, I was kind of like, it didn't ring that comically to me, except for, like I said, like picturing him in the vest and like greeting people, which is definitely not the job he has, as we know.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'm also just, Walmart seems like something so antithetical to Stars Hollow. I feel like Taylor would fight as hard as he could not to have a Walmart in Stars Hollow. And that kind of goes back to the whole exclusionary storyline we talked about last season with Jess in general. It also makes me wonder how he got to work before he had a car. Must have taken the bus or something. Great question. Yeah, lots of things to think about.
We get more about the Walmart job, if I recall. So we'll see it again.
Yeah. And back to Lorelai and Rory. They're driving home. Lorelai, understandably, is in a bad mood. Sherry forced them home with deviled eggs, which I would have been cool with. I love deviled eggs. Though, admittedly, they don't travel well or keep super well. Like, you kind of just want to eat them soon. So I could understand. They are probably smelly in a car.
Right. And so when they get back to town, Rory spots Jess's car and has this idea to help Lorelai work through some of her frustration and anger, not lashing out at the bathroom now, but lashing out at Jess's car. Rory suggests that they should go egg it using the deviled eggs. And I'm of a couple minds on this. One is that, do I think this is appropriate? Does Rory even have any justification for lashing out at Jess? I don't personally think so, but the other part of my mind is I think it is arguably hilarious that they're egging someone's car, but with deviled eggs. Like, that is just so, that part is funny. How do you feel?
It's so harmless. Like, it makes the car stink and he has to wash it, but it's not even like, I'm pretty sure with raw eggs, sometimes the proteins or something can mess with the paint. But with the cooked eggs, I think there's probably no damage whatsoever. I thought it was hilarious. Yeah. So wasted the deviled eggs in my opinion, but also hilarious. And they also like race back to the car and attempt to squeal out, but Lorelai can't get the car to make the noise. So instead they both just squeal themselves as they drive away. It was just hilarious. It was like a good kind of lighthearted break of the tension from the baby shower. Yeah, very, very funny. I'm with you on that.
Yeah, it was a good mom and daughter moment. Like a lot. I don't think most of us could imagine doing that with our moms. Maybe you can though. That's cool. But I can't imagine me suggesting that to my mom. So it was another like very characteristic, like that's so them kind of moment.
Yeah. Every once in a while, my mom will really surprise me with something. So I kind of feel like if I mentioned this now, not necessarily when I was a teenager, but if we had reason to do this now, I feel like maybe she'd go along with it.
Oh, good.
But when I was a
maybe
teenager,
I'll bring it up to my mom.
Yeah.
I need to think about if I have any enemies.
Yeah. Somebody who's like just a petty Family Feud person or something.
Have to think about it.
Yeah. I don't think I have anybody like that.
All right. Well, from here we go to the final scene of the episode, which is the loners protest. It's another hilarious scene at the end of this episode. He's got this like really, really big banner. I don't know why it's that big, but he plans to like display it out of a window and have it like go down the front of the church. But he does it backwards. So they all yell like, turn it around, because the whole like town is gathered beneath the church. And he goes to turn it around, but the paper just rips and falls to the ground, so they don't know what he's protesting after all this time.
And he attempts to yell at them. And I was looking at the captions as this was happening. It was just like a bunch of like random like not even words, just gibberish. And they attempt to like interpret what he's saying, and all of what they're saying is gibberish. It was just hilarious.
Yeah. What do you think he was actually protesting?
I don't know. Probably Taylor monopolizing the town. I don't know. The continued pressure to participate in town events. I don't know what the town loner would hate other than that. Maybe he was protesting the exclusionary nature of Stars Hollow. I don't know.
That's why he needed such a big banner, you know?
Yeah.
It's like a lot
List
to
his
unpack.
grievances. He had the opportunity to like go back down and then turn over the banner and roll it out that way. But obviously that would have lost the comedic effect. It was pretty funny. He didn't seem too torn
I like
up
that
about
we never
it.
know.
Yeah. My gazebo moment happens right after this when, as everybody is standing around after this attempted protest, Jess walks out to his car and sees that it's been deviled egged, and Luke comes over and teases him about it, and then Babette tells everybody that they better get upwind from Jess's car because it's starting to stink, and that's what disperses the crowd. And that was just a priceless bit of comedy right there.
Yeah, it really was priceless. It was such a good end to the episode.
Yeah, this episode had like some heavy moments, of course, with the Sherry and Lorelai stuff, but overall it was just a pretty enjoyable, light episode, I think.
Yeah. So, who would you say was your MVP for this episode?
My MVP was the town loner. I admire him for sticking to his own morals, his own desire to be a loner, but he also at the same time is willing to go out there and tell everybody, you know, what's what with his protest, whatever it was. Hopefully it wasn't something I disagree with. I just like the town loner idea, and someday I would like to be the town loner to a town. Who was your MVP?
You know, I was really on the fence about this, but my MVP is Sherry. Do I agree with all of her actions? No. Do I think she's vindictive? No. I just really like the character. I think she's a fun person to see. I like the drama that happens in the scenes she's involved in, and I like the actor. I'm currently rewatching Gossip Girl, another GG show. And I actually just saw the season 2 plotline that features this actor where she plays this older woman who's involved with Nate. It's such a hilarious storyline. And Nate is
Like-
also another hapless human, speaking
Yeah.
of
Oh,
hapless
gosh.
people. So she was just on my mind. And then to see her again in this episode, it was like, oh, what a coincidence. And yeah, I think we'll see a bit more of Sherry this season. So I look forward to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it's a good episode. You made me feel really ominous about what's coming next for next week. So I'm kind of excited. I feel like I might know what it is just because of the gravity with which you said that.
Yeah.
But I'm excited for it either way.
All right. Well, talk soon.
Yeah, talk soon.
Thanks for listening to Talking Fast, a Gilmore Girls podcast.
Don't forget to rate and review us and share us with your friends. Join us on Instagram and TikTok at Talking Fast Podcast.
And join the conversation by emailing us your thoughts, talkingfastpodcast@gmail.com.